All right. Hey all. Is the volume good? Okay, awesome. I'm John. Nice to see you all. Name is spelled C-A-N but pronounced John. I'm one of the product managers here at Databricks, looking over a few different efforts we have, including Unity Catalog metrics. And today I kind of wanted to take you all over like what Unity Catalog metrics are, and then like what kind of use cases you can expect to see with them on AIBI, and how to kind of think about like a workflow in that regard. So just as a quick reminder to all of you, some of the stuff here that we show today might change, but a lot of the things I'm going to be showing you to you are already in public preview, so that only applies to the roadmap items. So I'll give you a quick intro about why we're doing this in the first place, and then kind of get into what we're doing. So as you all know, right, we have tons of different tables, tons of different types of data, tons of different kind of levels and quality of data. You'll have staging tables, you have aggregation tables, you have data with customer data that you just integrate into your data lake. But what you need is a way to be able to go from these data sets to insights. And insights, for some use cases are kind of defined as business metrics. So what's a business metric? A business metric is basically you being able to know where you're, for a certain given business question, you having the understanding of where does this data live, what data sets do I need to join, what aggregations do I need to do, what filters I need to apply, right? And what kind of semantics I need to tell my users so that they can correctly use this asset as if they kind of understand all the things I told you about without actually understanding all the, back-end data pipelines and fundamentals. So kind of thinking about how to, reason about this, right? You start with a question, right? Let's say the question is, what is revenue per active customer? From that question, you kind of need to decide what these things means in your business terms, right? What is my revenue? What is active customers? Which data sources do these things live in? How do I join to get to the right kind of definition? And once you decide that, right, once you decide, okay, here's my, revenue by active customer definition, then you need to kind of understand, okay, so what is my business going to use this metric in? Are they going to analyze it by region? Are they going to look at it by business units? Are they going to look at it by 50 other things in reality, right? You're going to have many dimensions to kind of look at. And when you're trying to implement this, you have a bunch of options today, right? What you can do is you can create a bunch of tables or views, right? You can have like an active, monthly actives, daily actives, like yearly actives tables, kind of representing these different levels, and create them as different assets. You can put them as in a dashboard with the certain queries so that the logic for your KPI lives in the widget. So you can have a widget that describes your revenue or active customers, right? So that would also work. That's an option. And finally, what you can do is you can kind of try to put this in a, in an LLM-centric application like a chatbot with the, you can say, hey, here's how you calculate revenue. Here's a function to calculate active customers. And that will also work. But the problem with a lot of these approaches is, one, they end up isolating your logic across the board, right? So stuff lives in like your widget, it lives in your Genie prompts, it lives in your tables, and many, many of those, by the way, right? So that's one. So you're kind of siloing your definitions. The second big one here is the moment you end up creating all these different tables and views, you end up with like a table per question nearly, right? So now, as an analyst, when I come in and I'm trying to answer a question, I have to do, okay, so to answer this question, what tables do I need? What tables do I need to join? How am I going to exactly do the filtering on it, right? It becomes like a larger like decision tree. And what we're saying is, you can do better than this, right? What if in Unity Catalog, we give you a way to centralize your metric definitions, right? A metric definition being your data model, your measures and dimensions, all the other semantic metadata, things like display names, synonyms, formatting, right? So whether something is currency or like, percent. All of that information into a bundle and govern that alongside all your data assets, right? Next to your tables, next to your kind of views, next to your schemas, you now have this thing called a metric view. And a metric view basically is a place where you define your organization's metrics in one place, govern them, establish reliability, certify them, so that you can kind of say, hey, when someone searches, they see, hey, this is revenue certified by this central data person or this line of business, right? And then finally make it available in a consistent, reliable, and repeatable fashion through Genie, dashboards, and SQL. And that was also a big one for us, by the way. Right? We didn't want something that's just locked up in a dashboard or just in Genie, but available also in SQL. So that if you want to query it outside of Databricks, you can also do that. If you want to do it from a custom app, you can also do that. So that was one of our bigger focuses. Just to kind of wrap all of this stuff up, right? You want to be able to define your data model. You want to be able to define your measures and dimensions. You want to be able to centrally govern them, right? You want to be able to get all the stuff you're getting with Unity Catalog today. Like think search, think lineage, think, role level masking, role level filtering, column masking, auditing. Every kind of basically governance piece that you get with metric views. You can certify them, right? So certification is something we're going to be introducing. I don't know if it's got announced yet, but it is something that we're going to be introducing at Summit, right? Which is whereby you can have a certain data steward role in Unity Catalog certifying different types of assets, right? So that asset is more trusted. In search, it appears in first results, right? When you're looking at lineage, you see, hey, this was off of a certified asset. And that also works with metrics, right? So now, when you come to Unity, you have a fully governed, fully certified, right, set of assets that you can directly expose to your end users without them having to do any modeling themselves. And finally, right, in some cases, you're going to want to materialize stuff for performance. Because so far, everything we talked about with metrics is logical, meaning all of this stuff is calculated just in time. These are all just definitions of stuff. But with the materialization piece, right, what we're doing is we're bringing in the ability to materialize slices of metrics. Let's say you have a metric view, which has many different metrics, many different dimensions, but you want to say, hey, I always want my revenue by time, region, and business unit to be pre-computed. I never want any of my users to wait for that to be computed. And you can do that with built-in materializations, right? Your end users still end up querying the metric view, but behind the scenes, we see, hey, is there a materialization we can look at and give a faster response so that you don't calculate it on the fly? And that's something we're building into the metrics layer and the semantic layer here. And finally, once you have all of this defined, once you have all of this kind of settled, you want to be able to do natural language, you want to be able to dashboard, you want to be able to do notebooks and query it from your SQL REST, ODBC, JDBC, Python, Go, Node, whatever your poison is, and get that kind of going. And that's what we built with Unity Catalog metrics. And just to note, right, metrics is not the only piece of your semantic layer. So it's just a piece of your semantic layer. It is not the semantic layer. Because we view semantics as more than just being able to define your data and model, right? It's all these other things that comes with Unity Catalog. And what you'll see us also do is some of these semantic metadata I mentioned, like such as display names, formatting, synonyms, all of these other things, will not just be metric view concepts. We're actually going to expand that so that you can put for any queryable asset, any table, any view, any materialized view, or any other other aspect, right? Like dashboard, whatever context it makes sense, you're going to be able to attach these semantic metadata and consume them any place where you're consuming those things. So I would kind of want to zoom out 1 sec and say metrics kind of enrich the Unity Catalog story, but that's not where we're going to kind of finish, introducing semantics into Unity Catalog. All right, so I am going to switch over to do a quick demo because I'm sure you guys want to prefer a demo over slides. And then after that, I will try to save around 5-10 minutes so that we can do a little Q&A and then take anything and then we can cover other questions. All right. Cool. Is the zoom good? Let me maybe zoom once more. Something like this. Good? Okay. So what you're seeing here is just to maybe zoom out 1 sec. So this is the Databricks workspace, right? This is basically where you see all your data assets. This is where you search for assets. This is where you come for notebooks, queries, your dashboards, right? This is basically your starting point with Databricks. What I'm looking at right now is the catalog browser where all of your Unity Catalog metadata lives. And right now what we're looking at is a metric view called order metrics, which by the way lives in, just like your other tables and databases. I have my personal database here. I have a schema called metric view testing and I just put it there just for your reference. And a metric view, as I said, is three main things fundamentally, right? It's a data model, right? In this case, a source or set of tables. In this case, I actually built a quick star schema here with a one fact table and one dimension table, but this is as many dimension tables as you want, obviously. Once you have that source or data model, right, then you come and define your measures, right? And measures are aggregation calculations. These are things like where you're kind of taking an existing value and doing something with it, like just very basic examples like total revenue, order counts, You can take total revenue over order count. For example, I'm using one measure over another measure, right? I can do things like window measures. So if I wanted to do like trailing 7-day revenue, I can take my total 7-day revenue and put a window on it to get total 7-day revenue, things like that. And then once I have my measures, the next thing is dimensions, right? And dimensions are things, I mean, you know this, but just to kind of recap, dimensions are things where you want to allow your measures to be sliced or filtered or grouped by all these dimensions. That's what a dimension is from the perspective of a metric view. And in this case, right, we have as simple as a column reference saying order dates, but we also do some pre-processing with some SQL case statements and other things. The whole point here is we're not introducing a new language. We're not introducing a new concept. What we're doing here is repurposing SQL and SQL expressions to be able to define these measure, dimension, and other metadata concepts right within your Unity catalog to kind of get you going with all of this. And once you have defined this kind of package, right, this becomes something that you can expose and make available to others, right? You can give permissions, just like you're giving permissions to other tables or assets. You can, shortly, it's not in this release, but it's going to come in like a month. You're going to be able to see things like lineage. You can already tag them. I have the feature tag here, for example. You will be able to see insights, right? So who's using it, who's favoriting it, like, what are the top joins, top assets, all of that stuff. So it is fully integrated in the Unity catalog. And if I wanted to start asking questions, it's very easy. So as you can see, there's a button called Ask Genie here. So if I click on it, right, what it does is it gives me like a quick ad hoc Genie space where this metric view is associated with that Genie space, and I can start asking questions. For example, let's say it's suggesting me some stuff here. Let's say I want to look at show average order value by shipping mode. I click on it, and what it's doing behind the scenes is it has access to all the metadata I had in my metric view, right? So what's this doing is it's analyzing my question per Genie, but then instead of generating a query on top of the base tables, because it knows that it has a metric view with these definitions and it knows what is what, it actually generates a query directly on the metric view itself. And then the benefit of this is that behind this thing, there might be like mini joins, windows, a bunch of abstractions, right? That you might not want to expose to Genie or to your SQL users. But the benefit of the metric view is it kind of abstracts it a bit, right? So your end users or Genie or anything that needs to generate SQL has an interface that's much simpler, that's much more business oriented, that's much more like, tell me your measures, tell me your dimensions, tell me your filters kind of API, as opposed to you having to figure out all these complicated window functions, joins, self-joins, and things like that. And obviously, though, you'll want to ask stuff that may not be directly in the metric view, and Genie can already do that, right? If you wanted to ask something like, for example, like what do I have? For example, I don't have like a month-over-month growth rate for my revenue, right? If I wanted to say, what about month-over-month growth rate for revenue, total revenue, what it's going to do is it's going to try to see if there's a measure that actually matches that directly. It's going to realize there isn't one. And now what's it going to do? It's going to take, our existing total revenue measure and then do a window on it itself so that you can get it. So the whole point that I'm trying to show you all is metrics give Genie superpowers in that it abstracts so many other kind of things in your data model that you can start building on top of it and get, more accurate responses across your Genie, your dashboards, and SQL. Talking about dashboards, let me actually kind of switch over for 1 second because this was the Genie side, right? But the beauty of these metric views is that they can be consumed from anywhere. So if you switch over to dashboards very quickly here, I'm just going to create a new dashboard with you guys here now. So the first things first is we go to the data tab, we add the data source. I'm just going to select the order metrics that we created. And once we do that, Lakeview, the dashboards know that it's working with measures and dimensions, by the way, and it gives me a quick preview. If I did not have access to change something in the metrics, by the way, but if I wanted to add a measure, I can quickly do that here, right? I can add a new dimension or a measure quickly ad hoc if I wanted to do that at this level. If I switch over to my canvas, let's just start building stuff, right? metric views are already integrated into Lakeview just like other table assets, and we know how to generate all of this behind the scenes. So when you start, let's say doing a chart, I can just go to the axis selectors. In this case, I'm just going to select, let's say, date. And then for my y-axis, let's select total revenue. Oh, and now what it's doing is it's generating a query and refreshing this table. And the beauty here is because Lakeview knows how to generate metrics queries, it is automatically going to know and how to do it. You can use the assistant to help change stuff. What about revenue by shipping mode? Right, the whole point here is this is fully integrated across the stack, right? Whether you're using Genie, whether you're using the dashboards, right? It is going to know how to work with it. It is going to know how to query it. So if you don't want to write any SQL, you don't have to write any SQL. But if you want to write one a SQL, that also works. So switching gears one more time, and I'm kind of rushing just so we have time for the Q&A. We can go over to any of these examples if you guys want me to take a look. The SQL stuff is also fully integrated, right? So let's take a look at this example I'm showing you here. The thing we've done is we've integrated metric views as direct queryable objects in the both Spark and Unity catalog. So now when you come and want to query a metric view, you can just put it in the from clause, just like you're selecting from a table. You select your dimensions. In this case, I have two, like month and status. And then I specify my measures. Obviously, if you want to put filters, you can put filters in here too. We support anything SQL supports, but I just want to keep kind of simple. And what this query is going to do is we're going to take this query, look into your metric definition, look into what the measures are, what the joins are, what the aggregations are, what the filters are, and going to compile this into a much larger query. So in reality, what's going to execute behind this is a join. There's no window function, this, but could have been a window function with a bunch of aggregations. Plus, there's a big, huge case statement on the status. But from the user perspective, it's a very simple, relatively kind of understandable function. And that's what kind of we were trying to do with, right? If you want to keep this very high level, very simple, you can do that, right? Dimensions, measures, filters, great. If you wanted to do more complicated stuff, for example, now I'm doing like something where I am extracting quarters. I don't want months, I want to go up, I'm rolling it up. I am doing top 5 revenue by month. So that's another thing. If I wanted to, I could have gotten this, joined the results of this with another metric view. So it's very flexible in that, right? You can have multiple metric views. You can have a metric view building on top of a metric view. And then you can query all of these things across the stack, just like you're querying other tables and views without, with code or without code. And one final bit that I forgot to show you all is in the Catalog Explorer, right? You might ask, hey, how do I get started with this? You can go to any table. Let's go to like some orders table. I have like a TPCGH table here. TPCH orders.
And they've asked if I can wear a wireless mic for them. Yeah. Is that going to interfere with anything here?
It was there. All right. So if I go to this table, for example, if I click on the assistant and say,
I don't know if I can do that.
Okay, that's fine.
for example, now I'm asking, help me suggest a metric view and suggest relevant measures, right? It knows that I am talking about this data set, right? It's suggesting dimensions and measures. And then now it's giving me the full DDL for me to be able to create this metric view and use it somewhere. So if I click on this open in metrics view editor thing, it actually drops me with all of the stuff we created with the definition of that metric view we just looked at, right? So that gave me a starting point, 1 second. Now, if I wanted to make edits to the assistant, I can also do that, right? If I come back and say, add a new measure that is a ratio of existing measures, total price, and average price. Oh, I made so many spelling mistakes. Did you understand that? There you go. Oh, no, there you go. Price, right? For example, it added one. So the whole point is you can use the assistant to help bootstrap and get started very quickly on this from existing sets. from like your Lakeview dashboard. So if you have a Lakeview data set, if you open the assistants and say, hey, help me get started with a metric view, it will actually help suggest one thing that you can start. One question that comes up is, when do I need to use metric views? I'm going to say you don't have to use metric views for all your use cases, right? Metric views are great for when you have KPIs that you need to have accurate responses for, when you want to make something repeatable, when you want to have something accessible through multiple interfaces. If you're just getting started in Genie, or if you're just getting started in Lakeview doing ad hoc analyses, you don't need to create a metric view, right? You come and create a metric view when you want to have an asset that you can govern, certify, and make use with others. So that's, I think, like one thing to also like helpful, right? Metric view is not the tool for every project. It's a tool when you want to disseminate and make something predictable and accurate. But yeah, that's all I had for you guys today. Any questions?